Hello, this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. Sorry. We got some good stuff today. But I do also have to explain another thing because, again, Spreaker, I don't know what's been going on with it, but for the second day in a row, didn't upload my podcast immediately. I just got on the app and uploaded yesterday's podcast, so episode 199 is going to be Thursday's podcast, not today's. So, okay. We're gonna start off talking about Bronny again, and this is, as I and many other analysts probably suspected, this is probably the most any analyst has talked about, or any sports media for that fact, has talked about a second round pick in the NBA at all. And like I said, it's predictable. It's LeBron James' son. You know, if Michael Jordan's son made the NBA, it would be a very similar thing. But Bronny James has become a popular betting pick for Rookie of the Year per ESPN. And, you know, like I said yesterday, he's not a horrible player, right? He has athleticism. He has a lot of talent. I think he can become a great player, just not in the foreseeable future, right? Like, what we saw was that he couldn't handle college. And we're seeing right now that he's having just as tough a time handling rookie players in Summer League, right? So it's, you know, he's going to be talked about a lot, not only because he's LeBron James' son, but another reason I thought it wasn't a big deal that he got drafted was because this wasn't a very impressive draft class compared to what we've had in recent years. You know, there wasn't a Wembanyama or a Zion or, you know, even Lonzo Ball, when he got drafted, he was a big deal, even if he was a second overall. You know, there's no Ben Simmons. There's no one. There wasn't, like, a consensus big name number one guy. Right? So, Bronny getting drafted in the same spot that most other G Leaguers got drafted is not a big deal because that's what he's going to be for the time being. Bronny is going to be a G Leaguer. He's not going to be playing on the court with LeBron in his first year. You know, and he's not going to have enough minutes, like, let alone the stat line. He's not even going to play enough. He's not even going to play enough to be considered for Rookie of the Year. So as big a deal as people try to make this, it really isn't. Because Bronny, he was in a weak draft class, and people, they argue he shouldn't have been drafted at all, but when you look at the other people he was drafted near, it makes plenty of sense. He's drafted right where he should be, with G Leaguers. Alright, so I think, honestly, this Brandon Ayuk situation is probably something I mean, it's replacing me crapping on the Cowboys a lot, so I guess it is helping Cowboys fans find me a little bit more bearable. But the Patriots asked about Brandon Ayuk, and, you know, I made two main points about what I think about this Brandon Ayuk situation. One is that I think if any team can handle this kind of noise in the offseason and still have a successful regular season, it's the Niners. And I also said that I don't think they're going to trade Ayuk in general, but I had another thought. So I saw yesterday when I said that the Niners could handle this noise and resolve the situation, I kind of cited the Nick Bosa thing last year. The Nick Bosa contract negotiation lasted all summer. It lasted until the first week of September when he signed his contract. So, but also Nick Bosa seemed to want to play for the Niners. It was just a matter of how much he was getting paid. Brandon Ayuk, on the other hand, doesn't want to play for the team. So keeping him on the team is likely going to do more harm than good. So they can... That's going to create an unnecessary distraction. Right? And that's what I think happened to the Packers 2 years ago, because, like I said, they went from going 8-9 and missing the playoffs to last year making the playoffs, winning a playoff game, going toe-to-toe with the Niners, who made the Super Bowl. And the only thing that changed was Aaron Rodgers left. That's not because Jordan Love is better than Aaron Rodgers by any means. It's because I think there was less noise, less distraction around in the Packers locker room. Aaron Rodgers still being around when pretty much everyone in Green Bay understood he didn't really want to be there. That created they were keeping an unhappy player on the team, and it disrupted them. So I think if the Niners keep Ayuk, they're keeping an unnecessary distraction and therefore making their team much weaker and much more, and their division, they're probably the best roster on paper in football. But with a distraction like that, they can allow for the Rams to take over. And you might call me crazy on that. And I don't think it's going to happen because I think they're going to resolve the Ayuk situation because they're a competent organization. And I think they're going to get to a point where they're back to the point... Because, like I said, they don't really need Ayuk necessarily. Their roster right now is much better than the 2019 roster that got them to the Super Bowl. And, like I said, they were through the first 3 quarters, they were leading the Chiefs. Now they have a better quarterback than they had then, much better running back than they had, and a more talented receiving core, and they still have Kyle Shanahan. So, no reason they can't make the Super Bowl even without Ayuk. But, keeping him around when he really doesn't want to be there, that's just going to cause them to underachieve completely. Alright, so, Bill Belichick is favored to be the Cowboys coach in 2025 as Mike McCarthy enters the season on the hot seat. Yesterday I talked about certain teams that Belichick might be a good spot for. I think there would be a major power struggle with him and Jerry Jones. But listen, I'm going to think the same of the Cowboys until they prove me wrong. And listen, I think they're going to make the playoffs this year, and I'm going to go over that in a second. What teams I think are going to make the playoffs. The Cowboys are on that list. But, I gave you the 5 teams I think can make the Super Bowl this year and win it. The Cowboys aren't on that list. I think they're a first-round exit at the very best second round. So Belichick coaching them, I don't know what the hell would even change. Because at the end of the day, the way Jerry Jones has ran it is pretty much setting them up for failure because he overpaid every key position. Starting with Dak at quarterback. There was no need to pay Dak that kind of money in the first place. And the reason that happened is because they allowed him to gain the leverage. So now they're in cap hell. And they're in a big asshole right now. Alright. So I'm actually going to tell you what teams I can make that I think are going to make the playoffs in each conference right now. So you got your division winners, right? The Chiefs are going to win their division. The Texans, I think, are going to win their division. Pretty handedly at that. I think the Bengals will win the division over the Ravens, but it's going to be tight. I think the Bengals are more capable in the playoffs, but it is possible in the regular season. If the Ravens have an easier schedule, that's kind of what it's going to come down to. Because the Bengals and Ravens are pretty even talent-wise. It's just, I'm going to bet on the Bengals more in the playoffs because they had more success. Burrow has made a Super Bowl and lost. He literally lost by 3 points. He was that close to winning it. And that's when him and Zach Taylor were less experienced. So I'm going to bet the Bengals have a better chance at making the Super Bowl, but it is possible if whoever has an easier schedule will win the division. But right now I'm going to say the Bengals. So your 4 division winners are likely going to be the Bengals, Chiefs, Texans. Then the AFC East is very interesting. My guess, it'll be between the Dolphins and Jets. It's... I don't want to say the Bills because... I don't know, it's tough. That's the division that I think will have the 3 playoff teams this year. Probably the AFC East, if I had to guess. Because the Bills, I can't bet against them because they're not bad enough to bet against. But they've lost. They've gotten progressively worse and more disappointing over the years. So, your 4 division winners, and then I think the 2 wildcard teams, the Dolphins and Ravens, pretty easy. And then there's a 7th spot, which will probably belong. I don't think anyone else in the AFC West will make it. I think the Chargers are going to miss it again. And I know they have Justin Herbert, but how else did the Chargers get better? That's my question. Is there anything else that made the Chargers a better team? Herbert's great, but it hasn't been enough for the Chargers to go anywhere. So that 7th spot, I think, will go to another team in the AFC East. And I know there's the AFC North, you got the Steelers, the Browns are even interesting, but I can't bet on that. The Jags are also interesting, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs either. So, final conclusion, your 7 AFC playoff teams: Bengals, Chiefs, Texans, Jets, Dolphins, Ravens, and I think the Bills, probably for that 7th playoff spot. And yeah, there's other teams that are probably going to be in the in the hunt. I mentioned the Jags. The Chargers are an interesting team, but I just don't see enough proof for me to put them in there. The Steelers are they're always an interesting team. Tomlin will probably have them have another winning season. So there's other teams that can make it in, but that's my AFC playoff right now. For the NFC, your division winners, I'm going to say the Eagles. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say the Lions. And then the Niners. Then the NFC South is also interesting. I'm going to say the Falcons win that division. And then your wild card teams, I'm going to say the Cowboys. All right. I'm going to say the Packers. Then there's that 7th playoff spot. I'm going to give it to the Rams. Because the other options, other than the Rams for that 7th spot, it's the Saints, who I don't dislike, but there's not enough to like about them to put them in the playoffs ahead of the Rams. That's really it. I know some people are liking Jaden Daniels. They think he's going to turn the Commanders around. I'm not willing to bet on that. So yeah, those are my 14 teams that I think are headed to the postseason. And you guys already know my 5, well, in case you missed that podcast, my 5 teams that I think are headed, that have a chance of making the Super Bowl. Bengals, Chiefs, why am I forgetting someone? Bengals, Chiefs, Niners, Lions. Damn it, who else did I say? Bengals. This is embarrassing. I think I said the Ravens. And then the Jets were like a 6 team, but like I said, that's all depending on Aaron Rodgers, the 40-year-old, staying healthy, so I can't say them officially. But I can say the Bengals, Ravens, Chiefs, Lions, and Niners. All right, let's shift to a new topic. Geno Smith is excited by what he sees with new offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb coming from Washington to the Seahawks. He's a great coordinator. Unfortunately, the Seahawks as a team, I don't see having much success. I don't think they're even close to the Rams or Niners right now. I think they're a third in the division kind of team, and there's going to be too much competition in the NFC North for them to make the playoffs. Yeah, they're a third in the division. They're probably going to be in the hunt for most of the season, and ultimately be on the outer end of that postseason threshold. But, yeah, I mean, Geno Smith, he turned his career around, which is great, but I just don't see him bringing a team like the Seahawks to the playoffs. All right, so we're going to close out with basketball, actually. Dwayne Wade was on a podcast, and he mentioned that before his injury problems later in his career, he thought he was chasing MJ's GOAT title. And the GOAT discussion is kind of a delicate conversation topic when it comes to the NBA. So I think Dwayne Wade should be careful throwing his name in there. And listen, Dwayne Wade was a great player. He won the finals in his 3rd year, finals MVP. The Heat broke the winning streak. I think they won like 27 straight when him and LeBron were together the 2nd year. The 2013 Heat are one of the best teams ever, and Dwayne Wade was a part of that. He was great defensively. He played very aggressive. He was a great leader. So in a lot of ways, he was similar to Jordan. But he, because of his injuries, he kind of never got into that, like, top 10 status. But I'd have to review. I think he's definitely in the top 25 to top 20 range. He might be top 15 if I look back. Because the players I have in the top 10, no order. I'm going to make that clear so I don't get killed. I got LeBron and Jordan. I got Kareem. I got Magic. I got Wilt Chamberlain. Kobe Bryant. Larry Bird. Tim Duncan. Bill Russell, and Shaq in my top 10. Then I actually have Hakeem Olajuwon right outside there at 11. And then you get your Steph and KD, probably 12 and 13. Then after that, there's a lot of great players. There's Karl Malone. There is Dwayne Wade. Even Kevin Garnett, very solid. There's a lot of players that could be considered in that area. I think Dwayne Wade is one of them. He really was a fantastic player. So, no, he's not in GOAT status, but who knows? If he didn't get injured, it is a good point to bring up. So, all right, a bit of a shorter podcast today, hitting the 20-minute mark right now, but I think it was pretty good. This was Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. Next week, I should be good every day except for Thursday. So every day except Thursday, I will get a podcast in. And hopefully this Spreaker issue can get resolved and I actually upload a podcast on the right day. I will let you guys know. So, Dylan Miller, Daily Dose of Dylan. Have a nice day. I will see you Monday.